It's Wednesday. Today I woke up. I said I'm going to be happy. I don't care what's going on around me. I'm going to embrace the notion of happiness today. And I would like everyone that's following me on social media to do the same. Forgive that person that hurt you the most. Let that pain go. Take the initiative on your business. If you have to change something like stop smoking or anything of that nature, do it. Today's the day. Don't wait for tomorrow. Do it today. All right? Yay!
April 13th, 2022, 7:30 in the morning. The sun was already warming the quiet streets of North Lauderdale, Florida, as 37-year-old Jennifer Bologna stepped outside her home on Tam O'Shanter Boulevard. Her 15-year-old daughter Anastasia, affectionately called Nana by the family, grabbed her backpack and headed toward their car. This was their routine. Every school morning, Jennifer would drive Anastasia and her two younger sons to school before heading to work herself. It was a simple, ordinary moment that thousands of mothers across America experience every single day. Jennifer had worked hard to create this normalcy for her children. She had purchased this house with her own money after her divorce 2 years earlier. This was her sanctuary, her proof that she had escaped the nightmare of her marriage to Andre Anglin. The morning air felt fresh with possibility as she jingled her car keys, calling to her sons to hurry up. But Andre Anglin had other plans. He was already there, waiting in the shadows of the home Jennifer thought was safe. In 60 seconds, both Jennifer and Anastasia would be lying dead on their own driveway. The two young boys would witness their mother and sister gunned down in cold blood, their screams echoing through a neighborhood that would never feel safe again. Jennifer Bologna's story wasn't supposed to end this way. Just 2 years earlier, she had done everything right. She had found the courage to leave an abusive marriage that had consumed nearly 2 decades of her life. She had filed for divorce from Andre Anglin in 2020, finally breaking free from a man who had controlled, threatened, and terrorized her for years. The transformation was remarkable. Friends and family watched as Jennifer blossomed into the woman she was always meant to be. She bought her own home, something that filled her with immense pride. For the first time in years, she could make decisions without fear, without having to calculate whether her choices would trigger Andre's explosive temper. Jennifer threw herself into being the best single mother she could be. She worked tirelessly to provide for her 3 children, creating the stable, loving environment they deserved. Her cousin Balanda remembered how Jennifer would light up when talking about her new independence. She had her own space, her own rules, her own life. The house on Tam O'Shanter Boulevard represented everything Jennifer had fought for. It was modest, but it was hers. She decorated it the way she wanted, filled it with laughter instead of fear, and most importantly, she believed it was safe. The locks were changed, the address was new, and Andre was supposed to be part of her past. But domestic violence doesn't end with divorce papers. Jennifer had escaped the marriage, but she hadn't escaped Andre Anglin. He was still out there, still obsessed, still dangerous. If you've ever felt trapped in a toxic relationship, this story will show you why leaving isn't always enough, and what you need to know to truly protect yourself. Hit that subscribe button because this gets darker than you think. Jennifer's story is one that millions of women can relate to. Maybe you know someone right now who's trying to escape an abusive partner. Maybe you've been there yourself. The truth is, the most dangerous time for a domestic violence victim isn't during the abuse. It's when they try to leave. Statistics show that 75% of domestic violence homicides happen after the victim has already left the relationship. Jennifer thought she had done everything right. She got divorced, she moved, she started over. But her ex-husband Andre couldn't let go. Before we continue with what happened that morning, I want you to comment below and let me know. Have you ever witnessed the warning signs of domestic violence in someone you know? Your story might help someone else recognize the danger before it's too late. Andre O'Dane Anglin wasn't born a killer. Like many abusers, he started as someone's first love, someone's high school sweetheart. Jennifer met Andre when they were both teenagers attending school in Margate, Florida. Back then, he was charming, attentive, and seemed to genuinely care about her future. Young love has a way of making red flags look like romantic gestures. When Andre started calling Jennifer constantly, She thought it meant he loved her. When he wanted to know where she was every minute of the day, she believed it showed how much he cared. When he got jealous of her friendships, she saw it as proof of his devotion. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It never does. Andre slowly began isolating Jennifer from her support system, convincing her that he was the only person who truly understood her. He made her feel special, chosen, different from other girls. By the time they graduated and got married, Jennifer was already trapped in a cycle she didn't even recognize. They had 3 children together, Anastasia and 2 sons. Jennifer threw herself into motherhood, while Andre struggled to find his place in the world. What started as teenage romance had morphed into something much darker. The boy who once wrote her love letters had become a man who saw her as his property, not his partner. The early years of marriage revealed Andre's true nature. While Jennifer worked multiple jobs to support their growing family, Andre couldn't hold down steady employment. This wasn't just bad luck or a rough economy. It was a pattern of irresponsibility that placed the entire financial burden on Jennifer's shoulders. But the money problems were just the beginning. Andre used his unemployment as a weapon, making Jennifer feel guilty for working while he stayed home. He would accuse her of thinking she was better than him, of trying to control him with her income. The very thing that kept their family afloat became a source of constant conflict. The emotional abuse escalated gradually. Andre would explode over minor issues, a dinner that wasn't ready on time, a phone call from Jennifer's family, or simply because he was having a bad day. Jennifer found herself walking on eggshells, constantly calculating her words and actions to avoid triggering his rage. Then came the suicide threats. Whenever Jennifer tried to stand up for herself or suggested they needed help, Andre would threaten to kill himself. He would tell her that she was driving him to it, that his death would be her fault. Jennifer and her family would spend hours talking him down, begging him not to hurt himself. These weren't cries for help. They were manipulation tactics designed to keep Jennifer trapped. Every time she considered leaving, Andre would pull out this ultimate weapon. How could she abandon someone who might hurt themselves? How could she live with that guilt if something happened? The pattern was textbook abuse, isolation, financial control, emotional manipulation, and the constant threat of violence, either against Jennifer or against himself. Andre had turned their home into a prison where Jennifer was both the warden and the prisoner, responsible for managing his emotions while sacrificing her own well-being. The most tragic part of Jennifer's story is how many people saw the warning signs but didn't recognize them for what they were. Friends and family watched Andre's controlling behavior and chalked it up to him being protective or passionate. When Jennifer made excuses for his unemployment, people assumed she was being supportive.
7:36 right now, and a suspect wanted in connection with a double homicide has been found dead. This case all started last Wednesday when 2 victims were found shot to death outside of their townhome along the 7900 block of Tam O'Shanter Boulevard in North Lauderdale. Those victims seen here identified as Jennifer Bellany and her daughter, nicknamed Nana. Police say the daughter's father, Andre Anglin, was the only suspect in the shooting. BSO now saying Anglin shot himself inside of a bathroom at a Circle K along Sunrise Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale.
She was loving. You could call Jennifer at 4 o'clock in the morning. She'll be able to help you. She was strong, just like her mother. And even when she was going through that hard time, she would still be able to find a reason to laugh.
Jennifer Bellany, seen in this photo, and her teenage daughter were the victims of Wednesday's horrific crime in North Lauderdale.
And he abused her countless times.
The physical abuse, family says, is why they were no longer together.
I know he was seeking for help, and we did our best to help him. We did our best to help him, but the only thing, she did not want to be with him anymore. She did not want to have a relationship anymore because of the trauma or the abuse that she's been through.
Family says that Jennifer had 2 young sons. They say they were in the car ready to go to school when their mother and sister were shot dead.
She dropped her book bag and her brother's book bag trying to run for her life, and he still found a way.
Neighbors describe the horror.
I seen a bunch of people crying. It's something I didn't want to see. I seen I don't really want to say it, but I seen the body laying on the ground. I didn't want to see that also.
And another telling us the last exchange she had with one of the victims.
The young lady, I speak to her every morning. She be standing out there. I say, good morning. She say, good morning.
Society has a way of normalizing abuse, especially when it happens gradually. Jennifer herself didn't wake up one day and realize she was being abused. It happened so slowly that she adapted to each new level of control. The constant phone calls became normal. The financial dependency became their reality. The suicide threats became just another crisis to manage. Even Jennifer's attempt to get a restraining order in 2018 was dismissed when she didn't follow through. The system that was supposed to protect her failed because it didn't understand the complex psychology of abuse. Victims often withdraw legal complaints not because the danger has passed, but because the pressure and fear become overwhelming. Everyone around Jennifer was watching a woman slowly disappear, but nobody knew how to save her. By 2020, Jennifer had reached her breaking point. After years of walking on eggshells, managing Andre's emotions, and carrying the weight of their entire family on her shoulders, she made the most difficult decision of her life. She filed for divorce. This wasn't Jennifer's first attempt to leave. The couple had separated twice before, but each time, Andre's manipulation tactics had worked. The suicide threats, the promises to change, the guilt trips about breaking up their family. It had all been enough to pull Jennifer back into the cycle. But something was different this time. Jennifer had found her strength, her voice, her determination to create a better life for herself and her children. She went through with the divorce proceedings, legally ending a marriage that had been emotionally dead for years. The most powerful symbol of Jennifer's newfound independence was purchasing her own home. With her own money, her own credit, her own decision-making power, she bought the house on Tam O'Shanter Boulevard. For Jennifer, this wasn't just a real estate transaction. It was a declaration of freedom. She decorated the house exactly how she wanted it. She created spaces where her children could laugh without fear, where they could be loud without worrying about setting off their father's temper. Jennifer was finally living the life she had dreamed of during all those years of abuse. Andre Anglin couldn't accept that Jennifer had moved on without him. The divorce papers meant nothing to a man who had spent decades believing that Jennifer belonged to him. What followed was a campaign of harassment that would last until the day he killed her. Andre refused to respect Jennifer's boundaries or her new life. He would show up at her workplace unannounced, demanding to talk. He called her constantly, sometimes dozens of times a day, alternating between begging her to come back and threatening what would happen if she didn't. The threats became increasingly specific and violent. Andre told Jennifer he would kill her if she didn't return to him. He made it clear that if he couldn't have her, nobody could. These weren't empty words spoken in anger. They were calculated threats designed to terrorize Jennifer into submission. Despite the fear Andre was causing, Jennifer showed remarkable compassion. She helped him find a place to live after their divorce. She even gave him money when he claimed to be struggling financially. Jennifer was trying to maintain peace for the sake of their children, but Andre saw her kindness as weakness. Every act of generosity from Jennifer only fueled Andre's belief that he could win her back through persistence and intimidation. He had no intention of letting her go. In 2018, Jennifer took a crucial step that should have saved her life. She went to court and obtained a temporary domestic violence restraining order against Andre after he threatened to kill her. This legal document was supposed to be her shield, her protection from a man who had made it clear he wanted to hurt her. But the system failed Jennifer in the most devastating way possible. When it came time to make the restraining order permanent, Jennifer didn't follow through. The temporary order was dismissed, leaving her completely vulnerable to Andre's continued threats and harassment. This isn't uncommon in domestic violence cases. Victims often face immense pressure from their abusers, fear of retaliation, or simply become overwhelmed by the legal process. The system that's designed to protect them often requires them to navigate complex procedures while they're already traumatized and afraid. Jennifer's decision not to pursue the permanent restraining order would prove to be a fatal mistake. Without legal protection, Andre was free to continue his campaign of terror, escalating his threats until they became deadly reality. April 13th, 2022 started like any other Wednesday morning in the Bologna household. Jennifer woke up early, as she always did, to prepare breakfast and get her children ready for school. The routine was comforting in its predictability. Wake the kids, make sure they had everything they needed, load them into the car, and drive them to school before heading to work herself. At 7:25 in the morning, Jennifer stepped outside her front door with her car keys in hand. The Florida sun was already warming the quiet residential street, and neighbors were beginning their own morning routines. 15-year-old Anastasia followed her mother outside, backpack slung over her shoulder, probably thinking about the day ahead, classes, friends, the normal concerns of a teenager. Jennifer's two younger sons were already in the car, buckled into their seats and ready for the short drive to school. This was their normal, their safe routine that Jennifer had worked so hard to establish after years of chaos and fear. The house on Tam O'Shanter Boulevard had given them stability, predictability, peace. But Andre Anglin had been watching. He knew Jennifer's schedule, knew exactly when she would be most vulnerable. As Jennifer and Anastasia approached their car, Andre emerged from wherever he had been hiding and confronted them in their own driveway. What happened next lasted only seconds, but those seconds destroyed everything Jennifer had built. According to witnesses, Andre shot Jennifer first, the woman who had survived years of abuse, who had found the courage to leave, who had created a new life for herself and her children, fell to the ground in front of her own home. When Anastasia screamed at seeing her mother shot, Andre turned the gun on the 15-year-old girl. Anastasia, who had watched her mother fight for their freedom, who had finally felt safe in their new home, became the second victim of her father's rage. The teenager who should have been worried about homework and friends was gunned down in her own driveway. The entire attack lasted less than a minute. 2 lives were ended, 2 futures were destroyed, and 2 young boys lost their mother and sister in the most traumatic way possible. Andre Anglin had finally made good on his threats, turning a quiet Wednesday morning into a scene of unimaginable horror. The most heartbreaking aspect of this tragedy is that Jennifer's 2 young sons witnessed the entire attack from inside the car. These children, who should have been thinking about their school day ahead, instead watched their father murder their mother and sister right in front of them. The psychological trauma of that moment will stay with them for the rest of their lives. Neighbors on Tam O'Shanter Boulevard heard the gunshots and rushed outside to see what had happened. What they found was a scene of absolute devastation. Jennifer and Anastasia lying motionless in their driveway, while 2 young boys sat frozen in terror inside the family car. The first responders who arrived at the scene described it as one of the most disturbing domestic violence cases they had ever encountered. The brutality of shooting a mother and daughter in broad daylight, in front of the victim's own children, shocked even experienced law enforcement officers. Witnesses reported seeing Andre flee the scene immediately after the shooting. He had planned this attack carefully, knowing exactly how to escape once he had carried out his deadly mission. While Jennifer and Anastasia lay dying, their killer was already running, leaving behind 2 traumatized children and a community in shock. The quiet residential neighborhood would never feel safe again. Comment below if you're from Florida. This could have been your neighborhood. What would you have done if you heard those gunshots? Would you have known how to help those 2 little boys who just watched their world fall apart? This story hits different when you realize it happened in broad daylight, on a normal street, during the morning school rush. Jennifer thought she was safe. Her neighbors thought their community was safe. But domestic violence doesn't respect boundaries or zip codes. If this story is making you think about someone you know who might be in danger, don't wait. Trust your instincts. Sometimes being nosy could save a life. Within minutes of the shooting, the Broward Sheriff's Office descended on Tam O'Shanter Boulevard. The scene was immediately secured as detectives began the grim work of processing a double homicide that had occurred in broad daylight. What they found painted a clear picture of premeditated murder. Identifying the suspect didn't take long. Jennifer's family immediately told investigators about Andre Anglin and his history of threats and harassment. The divorce records, the dismissed restraining order, and witness accounts of his recent behavior all pointed to one conclusion. This wasn't a random act of violence. It was the culmination of years of escalating domestic abuse. Detective work confirmed what everyone already knew. Andre Anglin had murdered his ex-wife and daughter in cold blood before fleeing the scene. An arrest warrant was issued immediately, charging him with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The Broward Sheriff's Office made it clear that Anglin was considered armed and extremely dangerous. But there was one problem. Andre Anglin had vanished. He wasn't at his known addresses, wasn't with family members, and wasn't answering his phone. The man who had just committed the most heinous act of his life had gone into hiding, leaving law enforcement to launch a massive manhunt across South Florida. The clock was ticking, and everyone knew that a desperate man with nothing left to lose was the most dangerous kind of fugitive. For 5 agonizing days, Andre Anglin remained on the run, while an entire community held its breath. The Broward Sheriff's Office issued urgent warnings to the public. Anglin was armed, dangerous, and had already proven he was willing to kill. Residents in North Lauderdale and the surrounding Margate area were told to be vigilant and report any sightings immediately. The sheriff's office offered a reward of up to $5,000 for information leading to Anglin's capture. Tips poured in from across South Florida as people reported possible sightings, but each lead seemed to go nowhere. Anglin knew the area well and had apparently planned his escape route carefully. Schools in the area increased security measures, worried that a man who had already killed his own daughter might target other children. Parents kept their kids closer, neighbors watched each other's homes more carefully, and everyone wondered where Andre Anglin was hiding. The media coverage was intense, with Anglin's photo plastered across local news stations and social media. His face became synonymous with evil in South Florida, the man who had gunned down a mother and daughter in their own driveway. Every day that passed without his capture made the community more anxious and afraid. Law enforcement worked around the clock, following every lead and checking every possible hiding spot. While law enforcement searched for Andre Anglin, the community rallied around Jennifer's surviving sons and extended family. Neighbors who had barely known the Bologna family before the tragedy now brought food, offered support, and helped however they could. Local churches organized prayer vigils for Jennifer and Anastasia, while community members shared memories of the mother and daughter who had been taken too soon. Social media became a platform for both mourning and anger, with residents demanding justice and sharing information about the ongoing manhunt. The tragedy had transformed strangers into a support network, united by grief and determination to see Andre Anglin brought to justice. April 18, 2022. 5 days after murdering Jennifer and Anastasia Bologna, Andre Anglin's luck finally ran out. Law enforcement had been tracking leads across South Florida when they received a tip that would end the manhunt in the most anticlimactic way possible. Anglin had been spotted at a gas station located at 901 West Sunrise Boulevard. When deputies arrived at the location, they found him barricaded inside the bathroom, cornered like the coward he had always been. This was it. The moment the community had been waiting for, the chance to bring Jennifer and Anastasia's killer to justice. The Broward Sheriff's deputies immediately secured the area and began negotiation attempts. They tried to talk Anglin into surrendering peacefully, knowing that his capture alive would mean answers for the family and a proper trial for his crimes. The negotiators used every technique in their training, trying to convince a desperate man to face the consequences of his actions. But Andre Anglin had no intention of facing a courtroom, no intention of looking Jennifer's family in the eyes, no intention of taking responsibility for destroying so many lives. As deputies continued their attempts to negotiate his surrender, they heard a single gunshot from inside the bathroom. When law enforcement finally entered, they found Andre Anglin dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The man who had terrorized Jennifer for years, who had stalked her after their divorce, who had murdered her and their daughter in cold blood, had taken the coward's way out. He had denied the justice system the chance to hold him accountable, denied the family the closure of a trial, and denied the community the satisfaction of seeing him face the consequences of his evil actions. The manhunt was over, but justice would never be served. Sheriff Gregory Toney didn't mince words when describing Andre Anglin's final act. He called Anglin a menace to society and expressed the frustration that many in law enforcement felt about the suicide. Anglin had robbed everyone of the chance to see him held accountable in a court of law. The family's reaction to news of Anglin's death was complex and heartbreaking. On one hand, There was relief that he could never hurt anyone else again. The fear that had gripped the community for 5 days was finally over. But there was also anger and disappointment that he had escaped true justice. Jennifer's cousin Balanda spoke for many when she expressed frustration that Anglin had taken the easy way out. He would never have to sit in a courtroom and hear the impact statements from Jennifer's children. He would never have to face a jury and answer for his crimes. He would never have to spend the rest of his life in prison, thinking about what he had done. Most importantly, the surviving sons would never get the chance to see their father held accountable for murdering their mother and sister. The legal system that had already failed Jennifer by dismissing her restraining order had now been denied the opportunity to deliver justice for her death. Jennifer's story contains warning signs that could save your life or the life of someone you love. The first red flag was Andre's need to control Jennifer's finances, making her the sole provider while he remained unemployed by choice. Financial abuse is often the foundation that traps victims in dangerous relationships. The suicide threats were classic manipulation tactics. When abusers threaten to harm themselves, they're not seeking help. They're weaponizing guilt to maintain control. Andre used these threats every time Jennifer tried to assert her independence or leave the relationship. Post-divorce stalking and harassment are among the most dangerous warning signs. When an abuser refuses to accept that the relationship is over, continues making threats, and shows up uninvited, the risk of lethal violence increases dramatically. Andre's persistent contact with Jennifer after their divorce was a clear indicator that he posed a deadly threat. The dismissal of Jennifer's restraining order attempt in 2018 was a critical missed opportunity that cost her life. If you recognize these patterns in your own life or someone else's, immediate action is crucial. Document everything. Save threatening text messages. Record phone calls where legally permitted, and keep detailed records of all incidents. This documentation becomes vital evidence for law enforcement and courts. Create a safety plan that includes identifying safe places to go, keeping important documents accessible, and having emergency contacts ready. Tell trusted friends or family members about the situation so they can help monitor your safety and provide support. When leaving an abusive relationship, work with domestic violence professionals who understand the increased danger during this period. Contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 for expert guidance and local resources. Most importantly, trust your instincts. If someone's behavior is making you feel unsafe, that feeling is valid. Don't minimize threats or hope things will get better on their own. Jennifer's story shows us that some people don't change, they escalate. Jennifer's story doesn't have to be in vain. Like this video if it opened your eyes. Share it with someone who needs to see it. And subscribe for more stories that could save lives. What other cases should I cover? Let me know in the comments. Jennifer Baloney was a loving mother who deserved to watch her children grow up. Anastasia was a bright teenager who deserved to live her dreams. Their deaths were preventable, and their story must serve as a warning to others. If this video helps even one person recognize danger and get help, then Jennifer and Anastasia's legacy will be one of protection and hope.